And joining me right now here on the Mark Moses Show to talk about his brand new book, which I finally finished. You can see it on the screen. Yes, he's the great Rashad Phillips, basketball position metric author. Rashad Phillips, how you doing today?
Thanks for having me, Mark. I really appreciate it.
I really enjoyed reading this. I just want you to know, and especially for me personally, I know you. I've worked with you,
Yeah.
so it's cool reading the stories and I could just hear you and I could see your facial expressions in these stories. That's what's cool about it. So for our listeners and our viewers, tell us all about your book.
Yeah, it's just something that over the years I wanted to put together. I've always been a writer since a kid. I always love writing scripts, movie scripts, fiction, nonfiction. I've always had this imagination to create. So I finally got enough time and enough courage to gather it all to gather it all up and put together a book.
How long did it take to put this whole process together?
Man, I'll be 45 Friday. So I would say about 40 years, because it was the life experiences that I had to go through in order to really put this book together the way that I did. So I would say 40 years.
Did you work on it during the pandemic, trying to get this all finished?
I did. The pandemic gave all of us a chance to kind of reflect, right? And I was able to, sit in my office and really concentrate on what was next for me. Sometimes when the world stands still, you got to take the best with the bad. And for me, I looked at it as the cup was half full opposed to the cup being half empty. So I was able to just pick up a pen, get a notebook, and really start writing out my thoughts that I've had in my head for over 40 years and kind of format it and put it into book form.
I kind of said this to you off air. I write stuff, and being creative, I think fiction is easy to me, and writing about myself is very hard. You write about yourself in this book and go over all these different journeys and obstacles. Was that hard, Rashad, to do and put it on the paper?
To an extent, I would say yeah, because you want to tell so much of your story, but you also have to compress it for the reader. So it was a challenge in that regard. But for me, who better can tell your story than yourself, right? I just felt like this was a situation for me to be able to set the record straight on my story. Being an athlete, a lot of times the media, you guys tell the stories for us. And you may miss a story or a word or a incident or some type of moment when you write certain things and say, hey, man, like that was a solid story, but you missed the part so for me, it was easy to be my own author because I was able to not leave no stone unturned when I wrote my own story.
It reminds me sitting courtside at a basketball game. I tell this to fans all the time. You got to sit courtside because you're going to hear and see things you can't see in the 300 level.
Right.
This is my review. That's what this book reminds me of. You will see stuff and hear stuff that the guy in the press box won't see because you actually lived through it. And I know as a media member, it's hard for me to say that, but it was really fun. And I could tell, like, seriously, I came from Illinois. I came from Cook County in Chicago. We have all these great players, and everyone knows about them nationally. But what I like what you did, Rashad, is you finally gave some love to the state of Michigan and your county and your city and all these great high school players. That was one of my favorite parts, learning about some of these great teams that you played on, you played against, you looked up to. Was that important to you to highlight, the state of Michigan and all these great players?
Yeah, it was very important for me, Mark, to really shine a light on the state of Michigan and the city of Detroit. I believe when you talk about historically the game of basketball, a lot of players from our city get left out. And in the grand scheme of things, you look at like Magic Johnson is from Michigan. You look at a guy like that, right? He's in some people's book, he's the greatest basketball player of all time, right? He's from Michigan. So I just think, with my upbringing and me being around so much basketball at such a early age, I was able to experience so many different characters that played the game, so many different styles, so many different coaches, that I wanted to share that with the reader and really, open up the floodgates to how rich our city of Detroit is when it comes to the game of basketball.
And you recently got to do a book signing, right, at the Pistons game for your book. How was that?
That was extremely fun. So many people showed up, and it was, just to see the people that you grew up with to come support you and get a book and just hear those words of encouragement. I think we all need that positive injection of you're doing the right thing, keep going, and things like that. So it was like 2 hours of just family, friends, supporters. It was a fantastic moment.
Did some people that you talked about in the book, did they come up to you and give their opinion of what you wrote?
Yeah, like I've gotten, yeah, of course. And phone calls, texts, FaceTimes. Like, I've heard from so many people just saying thank you. A lot of NBA players too that have reached out to me that have already read the book and just said thank you for mentioning me. Thank you for that story. Awesome. And again, that's what it's all about for me is trying to bring the love and the appreciation for the game of basketball, because we're living in this society now where sports it's overjudged. Everything is just, you want to judge everything instead of appreciating what we're actually watching. That's what it goes into, my title of The Evolution is Being Televised.
We're here with Rashad Phillips. We're talking about his new book. I'll put it on the screen again. Basketball Position Metric. I love reading basketball books. And, I love the book of basketball from Bill Simmons. And I just read Scottie Pippen's book, which I loved. And, Phil Jackson, I've read multiple books from him. Like, I'm trying to read Bobby Knight's book next, where their undefeated season. So what I liked about yours was you really broke down some of these high school teams. And the one that stood out to me, and I was at my office reading it, and I kind of went like, oh, man, you talk about that Jalen Rose, his high school team. Were they the best, like, in theory, if you're going to – I know you just said judging people, but how good was that high school team?
I think that team, that Southwestern team with Jalen Rose, Vashawn Leonard, Howard Isley, I watched them as a 6, 7-year-old kid. And I think that, you hear about the Muggsy Bogues high school team, right? Those guys, they were fantastic. I think that Southwestern team coached by the legendary Perry Watson, that was – probably a top 3 high school team ever.
No, your high school team could have taken them. I know that's how you feel. You could have taken them. Come on.
I don't know if we would have won, but I know I would have got my 50.
I love it. This morning before we came on, I was like, all right, your top 5 or 6 players from Michigan versus my guys from Illinois. So I'm like, all right, here's what I would take. All right, I got Anthony Davis, Kevin Garnett. I'll take D. Rose, Isaiah Thomas, Dwayne Wade. I know we got a team, buddy, so you better bring your 5 or 6.
Yeah, that's going to be pretty hard to beat. I mean, you got, Isaiah Thomas. Like, I don't think we have anybody that can match Isaiah Thomas.
No. Here's what I loved about your book as well. So you're breaking down that you shouldn't label people with one position. And I love it, especially you get into the guards and the forwards. I just love this. So what's great is the forward is by Isaiah Thomas, a guard. And it's perfect to set the tone for the book, because I saw on ESPN, and you posted this the other day, where they're debating, is Steph Curry the best point guard of all time? And I'm like, what? He's not you know what he is? He's Steph Curry. That's how I rate him. Do you get aggravated after writing this whole book and then you still see this stuff on television?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I get aggravated. I just it makes me want to get the book out more. I believe that education is key. Knowledge is key. And, I wrote the book to kind of lessen those toxic environments, those toxic debates, and really restore the credentials of all these great players. I think every time Steph Curry has a monumental moment, the TV stations automatically go into bashing Magic Johnson or bashing Isaiah Thomas and why are we doing that part? I think we should uplift Steph Curry without having to say he's better than Magic Johnson or he's better than Isaiah Thomas. In all actuality, they're different positions. And I look at the positions like cars. There's different cars. You got the Honda Civic, you got a Ford Explorer, you got a Mercedes-Benz, you got a BMW, you got a Lexus, you got an Audi, you got a Kia, right? You see all these different cars, and I think we need to appreciate that brand of car for what it brings to the table, opposed to always trying to break down or tear down the next vehicle.
I could tell it's personal for you because when I read the book, you were like you say in the book, a 5'9" guard who could shoot the three in an era when it wasn't sexy yet to shoot the three. So was this personal for you in your basketball career to write this book?
It was very personal. And you know what? It was also personal to a lot of friends. Like, I'm in the basketball world, so I have tons, like 95% of my friends are basketball players.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just personal for me, it was personal for my friends as well. So not only telling my story, but I was trying to capture the stories of thousands of players that have been pigeonholed and maybe punished or lost out on great opportunities because they were born too early or born too late or play for this coach who didn't believe in that type of, template. So the book is not only for me, it's for the entire society of basketball players that can relate.
All right. Three parts I like. I'm going to try to do this as fast as I can with Rashad Phillips.
All right.
I love in high school where there's the all-star game and you don't know you're going to play. And you and your dad, I think you meet Dick Vitale in this story. I love it. This is awesome. So this is life. And this was great. Rashad told this story because I think everyone can relate. You don't know if you're going to play in the game. And then the last minute, they're like, all right, you're going to play. But then they didn't have the right jersey or shoes. What happened, Rashad? You got to tell it. You're laughing.
It's funny, Mark, when I was writing out that story, it was almost like I was just kind of laughing writing that story because it was like, you can't make this stuff up.
No.
It was like a Disney movie, really. Like, I didn't know I was going to play. They told me to come in and practice against all these quote unquote top players, ranked players, Kobe Bryant, Tim Thomas, Richard Hamilton, Jason Hart, Lester Earl. I can go on for days of the top players that was in this game. Hey, come on and practice with us. Yeah, you're kind of small, but we'll throw you a bone, come practice and we'll see how you handle it. And all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute. He's more than just a practice player. This guy might be the best player here, right? But we still don't know if we're gonna let him play. So let's just let him wait it out. Eventually they throw me a uniform. It was actually Mateen Cleave's jersey and his shorts. And Mateen is way bigger than me, right? They give me these oversized shoes and say, hey, go out and play. And you know what? You're actually starting too. So it was just such an amazing time. And for Kobe Bryant to acknowledge that story himself is what made it so monumental for me. So I love that part of the book as well. One of my favorites.
Look, that's life. You never know. You just get thrown. All right, the second one was Rashad Phillips. This is a tougher one. I think you're going into your senior year at Detroit and you have a conversation with your coach and you think about, hey, maybe I should turn pro, and you're thinking about your options and you get very confused by his answer where he wants you to come back and that you feel like there's some betrayal there. Dude, I've been there. I think a lot of people can relate to that story where you trust in people and then you're confused by what happens. And then, I don't know, it was a very interesting part. And there's that part where I'll go into my shell. Okay, I got to be lone wolf after this. I don't know who I can trust. Is that how you felt in that situation?
Yeah, Mark, you basically just broke it down. That moment in my life kind of changed me where I started to become more secluded
Mm,
because here I was, 21, 22 years old. And at that time, you put all of your trust into that college coach.
mhm.
That college coach can make your career or break your career. And for me, it was a strange conversation
Yes.
that didn't sit well with my spirit. And it kind of left me, to kind of turn cold a little bit.
Mhm.
And I break that down, like you said, in the book. And I think it's important for people to really pay attention to that chapter in the book because it could help the next basketball player and how to deal with certain situations. It can help the next coach that's in that situation that has a player sitting across from their desk trying to find that life changing structure that I didn't receive from my coach. So it was a very tough moment for me.
But I know you look, I know you respect and love your coach. Like that's your
Yes.
coach. Like, yeah, I get look, I completely get it. I'll tell you this. We're here with Rashad Phillips. In my career, I've been told rough around the edges, not good enough. I was told by someone, Mark, you're a great guy to have in the clubhouse. You'll never be the three hitter, a baseball term. You'll never be
Yep.
the guy. I've heard every single thing. You have to believe in other people, but then there's a time this is your story. And I think that comes across in your book as well. I know I sound very motivational speaker when I say that, but
But here's what here before you ask the next question. I mean, this is off script. So Mark, I really like what you just said though.
yeah,
Um, that's why this book is important because it's not just for basketball players. This book has been written to inspire all. And for you as a sports media member to find that inspiration and to find your story within my story is what's important about this book. So you telling me that lets me know that it's really serving its purpose,
yeah,
that book.
it is. Okay. Then we take it a step deeper. Here's the third one.
Oh man.
I love that. I love it because I think this is when I met you. We were at News 13 and we were breaking down the draft with Luka and Trey Young. I think that's one of the first conversations I had with you.
Yeah.
So in the book, you talk about, which is, it's kind of laughable, where you're like, look, I like Trey Young. Like, you should draft him. Like, that's your guy. And you went on different national shows and you're like, hey, Trey Young, Trey Young. And people were like, kind of angry and threatening you. Like, you're crazy, you're stupid. And it made me laugh because there's 9,000 mock drafts. There's knuckleheads everywhere giving their opinion. But it's weird from your perspective that it's like this will end your career if Trey Young's not good in the NBA. It was fast. Do you feel that way even today when you look at that story?
I'm glad that you brought that story up, Mark, because you actually lived that part of the story with me. You were on TV with me. You were on the news stations with me when people were really giving me negative pushback about me wanting Trey Young to be the number one pick. And I just thought that he has superstardom written all over him. So you lived that moment with me. So you know that story is 100% true. To answer your question, I do feel that my media career has been tied to Trey Young and Ja Morant, and I'm okay with that, right? I'm okay with that. I'm completely fine with that. And what Trey Young has been able to do thus far and what he will continue to do, I like my odds here, Mark.
Oh, I know. Dude, I remember I had John Hammond on with the Magic, and I asked him, I'm like, what do you need in this draft? And he's like, we need guard help. And I'm like, take Trey Young. So I'm on the air, take Trey Young. They wouldn't pull the trigger to go up in the draft. You know this. And they got Mo Bamba. It drives me crazy.
Look, as much as I love Mo Bamba to death. But I went on TV and told the Orlando Magic, you should move up in the draft and and get Trey Young. I publicly said that everywhere I went, and I took so much negative crap for that. But it's okay. He's in Atlanta where he should be, and he's doing a fantastic job.
I love also you really stand up for the mid-major guys. I love it. Just all of them. They all need their love because you're a mid-major guy. So it's like, I love that. And then I have to meet your dad now. I need you to know because you finally give him his recognition as well. He showed you the game of basketball. You went over the notes. How is your dad doing? I got to ask.
My dad is fantastic. He is at home in Detroit passing out books left and right. He's turned into a book salesman. He's like, anybody that runs into my dad, I've been getting DMs. I ran into your dad. Your dad sold me a book, and I love it. So he's doing a fantastic job of that. But again, my father is he's a basketball purist. He just genuinely loves the game. And he was able to kind of pass that trait down to not only myself, but my cousins and all the kids that were in his program that I grew up with. He just kind of injected us with the purity of the game. And that allowed us to really appreciate what we're looking at and really dissect it from a different lens.
Do you still have the notes that you grew up with that you and your dad would write about players? Do you still have them?
I think my father has some of those, like some of those scouting reports that I wrote as a kid. I think he has it, tucked away. But yeah, I don't physically have them, but my father has a lot of my old stuff.
Okay, I have tips for the second book. Here's what you need to do. In this one, I love, let me see if I get like the illustrations. Some of these are awesome. I love, you got John Morant and Muggsy Bogues and Jordan, Kobe. They're great. Who drew these for it?
So my guy, Matt, he's based out of Australia. I think he's the best sports. Yeah. He drew all of that from hand, and he is
amazing.
My book wouldn't be anywhere without Matt. Me and Matt developed a relationship a couple years ago, and he just did a terrific job. And Bethany, she drew some as well, based out of Atlanta. She was fantastic. And also Courtney, based out of Louisiana. So I was able to befriend these tremendous artists on this journey of writing this book and really put it together. But Matt kind of spearheaded all of it. And without Matt, there's no basketball position metric book without Matt.
All right. So the second book, I want to learn about your times in Europe. That you got to write. I thought it was going to be in here. I was like, where's those? I want to hear that because I think it's going to be a fun experience to read about that. And all because you went to different countries, you probably didn't speak the language. That'd be cool. And then also, all right, we got to call your dad. We got to find those from your kid where you wrote it down, and those need to be in the second book. Those would be cool to see.
Mark, you already putting me to work to write a second book.
You got to keep going. Hey, there's that saying. Once you win, you build the monster, and the monster's always hungry. So you got to make the second book now, buddy.
All right.
Where can we check out the book to get it today?
So you can go to weberpublishinggroup.com where you can purchase the book. Chris Webber for me was a person that I idolized as a kid, and still today he's a person that just that I look up to. I love Chris Webber, and for him to pick up my book and sign me to his publishing company, it's kind of full circle. So you can pick the book up at weberpublishinggroup.com.
Do you have Chris Webber's cell phone number in your phone? Do you? My sister needs it. She's the biggest Chris Webber fan. I'll end with this. So after I read the book, I went on YouTube and watched your highlights, and it was cool just reading the book and then seeing you play, and then seeing your dad in the stands, rooting for you. That made it really cool. It really was. And my description of you is you shift like Allen Iverson. Forget the shot. The way you would move laterally and get to the rim, very Iverson-esque. Bubba Chuck. And I know that's your guy of everyone. You love him. So I love that. And you could get separation and get your three off, even though And I'm like, are you 5'9"? I thought you're taller than that. Come on, man. And I just love it. So like you get your separation and you had that dog mentality and you wanted to lead and you wanted to win. And it was cool seeing you wear those highlights here on ESPN. And I was really proud, even though it's from 20 years ago, where the announcers are like, oh man, you got to watch out for this Phillips guy. This guy, he's a problem for people. I loved it, dude. So I appreciate you sending me a copy. I loved reading it. And I can't wait to see your next book, man. So thanks for coming on.
Mark, thank you so much, brother. It's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure working with you and your friendship, man. Thank you so much.
You got to do it. Talk soon. I got to hear it. Come on, man.
Until the next time, talk soon.